If you just bought an Air 3S, I want to show you some of my favorite accessories for the Air 3S, or pretty much any of the drones I fly. And we're going to start out with ND filters. Now these ND filters are from Freewell, and yes, they did send these to me to keep, but I have purchased a ton of Freewell ND filters in the past because I really like them. I like their quality. And when it comes to the Air 3 or the Air 3S in this case, they're one of the few people that make them in a split filter setting. So what that means is because you have a 1.8 aperture or 1.7 aperture on one camera, and then you have a 2.8 aperture on the other camera, you need the ND filters to come in two different strengths. So on this one, you can see that the top filter is a different strength than the bottom filter. Right here, this one is an ND32 for the main camera and ND64 on the bottom. And what that enables you to do is set your proper settings so that you always get the correct light no matter which camera you're using. And these are really well made. They're super durable, and they clip on just like any of the other filters would, or just like the original UV filter that DJI made. ND filters are important because you want to get your proper motion blur. Now, I made a whole video about it. It'll be linked up in the corner here. But if you don't get proper motion blur, then it's not going to look like we expect it to look with our eyes. So if you're doing this, you want to be able to see that your hands are blurry or your fingers are blurry. It's not right now because I'm shooting on a camera with a really high shutter speed because it's really bright. But essentially, if you're moving fast and you want to get the stuff that is in motion to feel like it's moving in motion quickly, and you don't want this stuttery effect, then ND filters will fix that for you, and they will help you get proper exposure. Or if you want to do long exposure photography or anything like that, that's another reason to have ND filters. So for example, this is a proper shutter setting and a proper ISO setting, aka ISO 100, the lowest you can go, and a shutter speed of 2 times my frame rate. So in this case, 1/60. And you can see here the footage is completely blown out. It's just white because I'm in a snowy area with a lot of bright sunlight. But then if I put on the 64 and 128 combination filter, you can see here that the exposure is absolutely perfect. And this is going to give us that nice motion blur. Here's an example of some footage without motion blur. And next to it, you can see footage with motion blur. Every movie you've ever seen, everything, the way we process imagery, the motion blur is the correct way. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it that way. You can do whatever you want, but to get your footage to look the way it should look and to look the way it would look if somebody like me, a professional drone pilot, shot it, then having motion blur is important. Unless you're doing VFX. But if you want to know about that, then you're going to want to watch that other video. I hand launch and hand take off with my drone a lot because sometimes that's just the most practical thing. But one of the accessories I do use very often when I'm out in dirty areas like this or in snow, sand, mud, anything like that is a landing pad. And while there are some really cheap ones on Amazon that you can get, and they do work sort of, this one by Hoodman is by far the best that I've found because it's heavy enough that it won't be blown away by the drone when you're taking off and landing on it, which is a real problem with the really cheap ones. It's also waterproof, which whatever material they made this out of, and it opens up and folds down really easy. It's got a green side and an orange side. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying or getting value out of this video, then consider subscribing. I go out and test and compare equipment in the most real-world conditions I can find here in Alaska where I live, and I give you tips and tutorials on how to use it. Now, another thing I don't use all the time, but I do use a lot, sometimes I just run with the regular DJI sticks, but are these extended sticks. And all this stuff is going to be linked in the description. But what this enables you to do is if you put it on, you can see here the difference in the height between these two is huge. And because you have a longer travel here versus a shorter travel here, it's just going to give you a more precise control over what the drone is doing, especially if you're a pinch controller like I am. Then it will enable you to make bigger movements with having the drone respond less, so it enables you to be more precise when you're trying to do really precision moves with the drone. So these longer sticks I really like for, especially when I'm really focused on flying a drone precisely and well, or getting very technical, complicated shots. I find the longer sticks help me quite a bit. Now, a lot of times I just roll with the regular DJI sticks because they're in the controller and I have them with me all the time. Or occasionally, if I'm just doing something like active track, I'll just take off and just use my thumbs to get the drone where I want it without even putting the sticks in and hit go. But if you're going to do anything that's very long and you're going to want to be very precise, then these sticks will help quite a bit. And while we're on the subject of controllers, if you got your Air 3S with this nice DJI RC2, which I absolutely love, then I highly recommend getting a screen protector for it, because it takes very little of, dropping something on this kind of an area in just the right way, or having something fall on it to crack the screen. So getting a good screen protector, they're super inexpensive on Amazon, and they will save your controller screen in the event that you have something hit it just a little too hard or in just the wrong spot. Yeah, I think they're like $10. They cost almost nothing. It's super worth it to make sure your controller screen is protected. Now, if you operate in cold areas, like I am today, where it's single digits and quite cold, I know it looks nice, but it's very cold, you got to keep your drone batteries warm and your controller battery warm. So what I run around with are these. These are Zippo electric hand warmers. They're rechargeable. They also have a little USB out if you got to emergency charge something. But these I can run on the lowest setting and keep batteries and the drone warm while I'm hiking or out and about like this. And it will keep my batteries warm so that when I'm ready to fly, both the controller and the drone are warm enough so that I don't have to take them off and let them sit and hover for a while. They will just be able to fly because the temperatures are warm enough to actually fly. Another thing I take with me a lot to recharge controller batteries or recharge the drone battery are these Anchor power banks here. They have a couple of USB-C outs. I mean, I use these things a ton. There's a larger and a smaller version. This is the 20,000 milliamp hour one, and the 27,000 milliamp hour one is also very good. Both of those will be linked in the description, but you can recharge a drone battery with this or get a little more battery life out of your drone if you need to, or keep your controller going if you need to as well. These these go with me everywhere because they are super valuable, especially when I am limited on how many batteries or things I can take with me. Next, you're going to want to watch this video right here. I'll see you over there. As always, if you have questions, you can ask me in the comments below, or you can join my live stream, which happens most Wednesday nights at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern, at least when I'm not out in a place like this and I got to hike a bunch of miles to get home. I'll see you again soon in the next one. Cheers.